co-hosted by Korea Health Industry Development Institute and North Chungcheong Province and sponsored by Ministry of Health and Welfare. Welcome to BioKorea 2020 Invest Fair. I am Park Seo-jin, today's MC. This event is to introduce pharmaceutical bio and healthcare companies' core technologies, as well as their strategies and visions to potential investors. This time is for aribio. Aribio is based on a new drug development platform. It deals with a rare disease therapy. So far, it is working on its second clinical trial approval from United States. Let's have a present Jung Gi-jun of aribio. Good to see you. Please introduce your company.
Sure, thank you. Ari of aribio in Korean is derived from the word arirang. If you dive into the deep meaning, it begins with small but beautiful, or it's a door to a bigger world, or an entity which overcame and acquired knowledge. So we're mainly focusing on developing new drug for patients, and aribio uses AriDD, which is an integrated new drug development system, and we work on multifunctional drug, so it's a biotechnology company. We were established in 2010, so it's been about 10 years, and for the first 2 years we were working on securing our pipeline, and afterwards we worked on polypharmacological drugs or other drugs, so we spent some time on agonizing, so we spent 4 years on this planning. And from 2017, we actively began clinical trials. So as mentioned before, we are working on the second clinical trial in the United States. So if you take a look at the staff members, I am taking charge of the company. I'm a R&D and technology transfer specialist. And at our research center, there's Dr. Lee Jin-seol, who is a pharmacology specialist, and Dr. Gu Se-kwang for toxicology, and Dr. Kang Sung-woo for bioanalytics. And for global clinical trials as well as approval, we run a US office, and there are experts with more than 20 years of experience. And in order to come up with the more successful and efficient clinical trials, not only in Korea but including all nations in the world, we invited a lot of advisors for our company. So our company can be divided into the Central Research Institute in South Korea, as well as a US office located in San Diego. So we can work on all the licensing and evaluation and strategic toxicity test. Then we will send the data to the US office, and after the clinical trial, we'll move on to the technology transfer. So our platform is based on AriDD, and many people ask us if it's a Ari-based drug, like our own drug development, but it's not the case. But if you take a look at the full, it stands for Advanced, Rapid, and Integrated Drug Development. So that is the abbreviation of AriDD. If you would like to take a brief look at it, there are three platforms here. First of all, in terms of molecular technology, we want to take a look at what kind of drugs or agents are underlying for this, and we work on biomarkers. And next, in terms of polypharmacological drug, there are those basic tests that we have to conduct is toxicity test. So at the preclinical research center, every time, even when we go through one test, we go with biopsy on 27 different organs to see if there's any toxicity. So that is working as a platform for ours. And once we are done with developing a drug, we want to produce it more fast and effectively. So we do have the facility, and our strength is that we work with a very short time. So typically, it takes about 10 to 15 years to finish the second clinical trial, but we only took 5 to 6 years, and by reducing time, we could forecast risks. And since we're working on our own clinical trial, we can reduce the cost by 70%, and if we complete it, the ROI will be high, of course. There are three major main pipelines, which are AR1001, 1003, and 1008. 1001 is the degenerative brain disease, which can be named by Alzheimer's disease or vascular dementia, and AR1003 is sepsis therapy, and based on this same platform, we are working on developing a coronavirus vaccine. And the next one is AR1008. Well, the image icon looks a little bit weird, but it's a natural ingredient-based therapy, which is typically used for abdominal obesity. Let's move on to AR1001. This is one of our major key strategies, and the key issue for Alzheimer's disease is how to deal with and how to properly save neurons. So our motto is save the neurons and rebuild the memory. So if we save neurons, then we can rebuild our memories. So that is our logic. And as you know, Alzheimer's disease is a very threatful and dangerous and harsh disease for humans. So, in terms of Alzheimer's disease, 1 out of 10 people over the age of 65 and 3 out of 10 elderly people at the age of 85 or over suffer from Alzheimer's disease. So nowadays people live as long as for 100 years or so. And if we clearly do not overcome this Alzheimer's disease, then what kind of disaster gonna bring to us? I don't have to mention that because you know. And nowadays, the Alzheimer's disease market is growing rapidly, and by 2050, this market is likely to increase by twofold in the Asian market. And nowadays, there are 5 FDA-approved drugs. However, the efficacy is not that high. And currently, in Korea, the market is about 1 trillion won, and globally, the market size is 34 trillion won. Well then, as for the Alzheimer's disease, the disease has been known for 110 years, and why is there no clear therapy? We wanted an answer for this, and we learned that this Alzheimer's disease is highly complicated. So we can't say that there is one clear reason for this disease. And there is this amyloid beta, which is well known, and there is tau and a cerebral blood flow dysfunction and metabolic disease or genetic factors and even aging factors. So it's highly sophisticated. That is why it is highly difficult to come up with a clear therapy. And secondly, all those developed and developing therapy failed. That is because people tended to think that there is only one clear therapy, and they had this single approach, so they all failed because of toxicity or other side effects. And I have mentioned before, they have this single target approach to deal with this highly complicated disease. It doesn't make sense. So, namely, in the future, if you would like to develop a therapy for this, then we have to come up with a pharmacological drug. So, let's move on to how we're working on this. So far, people tended to have only one target, which is called amyloid beta plaque. This will be accumulated in the human brain, and people tended to think that if we successfully get rid of amyloid beta, then we will be able to recover the neural system and improve the cognition system. But after having this clinical trial, then they could get rid of amyloid beta, but they couldn't bring back the neural system as well as cognitive system. So those failed drugs are listed on the screen. And then what kind of approach we are taking? We wanted to come up with a polypharmacological drug, and we tested this with an injection, and we conducted this study, and we found 3 major mechanisms. I'm sorry to use English here, but they are crab and went and autophagy. And these 3 agents and these 3 pathways are the keys to save the brain or killing the brain. And once activated, we could find neuronal recovery as well as cognition improvement. So this is our new strategy. And we are not the only company talking about bringing back the neural system. So last year, in August 2019, Caltech published this on Science, and they said that neurons are closely related to memory. It sounds simple, right? And the second thing they said is if you increase the number of neurons, then we can successfully develop an Alzheimer's or degenerative brain disease therapy. Then what is our strategy? There are 3. First of all, I said that AR-1001 is a polypharmacological drug, and but there is this thing, crap. What crap has to do with our brain? It is dealing with our neurons, and next is Wnt. It is in charge, taking charge of the brain system, which is a synaptic plasticity. Once activated, our memory can be activated. And next is no matter how well we bring back the memories, if we do not properly deal with the waste product in our human body, then they could resuffer the Alzheimer's disease. So just like a cleaner, we have to deal with this and bring this in order to bring healthy cells. So when we activate this, then neurons will be back and our memories will be rebuilt. Here's one interesting result that I would like to share. When we administered our agents, the left picture is normal cells and the middle one is amyloid beta, a toxic cell. And on the right is when we administered our agent as well as the amyloid beta. The red dots show that the cells are dying. So if there are more red dots, that means more neurons are dying. So this is a summary of our 24-hour based test. The neurons are moving, and in the middle image, the red dots are keep increasing, right? On the very right, when we administered, then we could massively reduce the number of the red dots. So we proved this, and we also proved this via animal tests. So we conducted AR-1001 animal tests, and also after conducting the first clinical trial in Covens, UK, and then we got the second clinical trial approval from the US FDA, and we're working on it. And about the clinical trial, we are working with 21 centers in the United States, and we are conducting this test on 210 target patients. And the recruiting process has been 90% done, so we're almost done. And there was no clear side effects. So from the US FDA, we got approval to prolong this test for 6 months. So we have the second clinical trial approval. I cannot clearly tell the exact results right now, but we had a summary of this. These are the lines from our clinical doctors. Among our clinical doctors, this doctor is in charge of the most highest number of patients. And Dr. Nash mentioned that it is rare to see patients improve this dramatically on an Alzheimer's study, and Aribio's AR-1001 seems to have noticeable effect on the patients. And Dr. Greeley is based in Washington, and the patient recruitment is over in Washington. The doctor Greeley says patients and families are asking to receive more of the study drug. Some families are flying into the hospital from another state just to participate in the study. And here, not our clinical patients, but other patients apparently are asking for those agent producers if they could get those agents. So which is very good news for us. And on top of the studies we have working on so far, we will put more efforts to come up with more fruitful results. And currently, we're planning to do this later this year or in the first quarter of next year. We will go through clinical trials to come up with the timeline results. Nextly is sepsis therapy. Sepsis is a disease which is a life or death problem. So our motto for this is saving lives. How are we going to save lives of sepsis patients? So we work on this polypharmacological drug or a pharmacological drug, and we wanted to ask ourselves, why is there no clear therapy? That is because this is also highly sophisticated. When one's affected and one's infected, they come up with inflammations and their organs die. And currently, there is only one therapy, and even that therapy was kicked out in 2004, which was developed by Lilly. And all the therapies so far are single targeted, so they, in terms of getting rid of inflammations or reducing platelets, but based on that kind of functions, we cannot come up with the effective therapy. So our strategy, unlike other companies, we take a dual mode target. First of all is macrophage, and in terms of macrophage, we suppress inflammatory cytokine, and the next one is neutrophil. In terms of neutrophil, we increase phagocytosis to rebalance in the human body and to save lives of patients, and we can provide therapy to patients. And what is interesting about this is that when we took a look at our research, the serious sepsis and serious coronavirus, the symptoms were almost the same. So on the slide, it shows a mild symptom. For mild symptoms, you only suffer from fever, headache, or chills, and you would just overcome it. And there are some carriers without any symptoms. But if this becomes serious, then on the right, you can suffer from ARDS, which stands for acute respiratory distress syndrome. And when this occurs, then in the neutrophil, a lot of cytokine will be released. And this famous thing, cytokine storm, will happen. And because of that, our immune system overreacts, which increases the death rate. And based on this, our AR1003, when administered in the middle of this stage, or it's better if administered in advance, and this has a high possibility of mitigating the cytokine storm. So in terms of this infectious disease therapy, especially for not only for the coronavirus COVID-19, but also any other variant viruses in the future, we could make use of this therapy. So far, I have covered 2 out of the 3, and our commercialization plan is next year. We are planning to go public through our technology, and we are planning to finish our second clinical trial with our AR1001. We will get the result of the second clinical trial, and we will become a partner with global pharmaceutical companies to produce additional goods, and we'll go public through IPO. Over the past 10 years, we have been struggling to develop a new drug, and we are about to have results of our clinical trials, and all the efforts that we have put will further make a second step. Thank you.
We have listened to various rare disease therapy as well as pipelines of aribio. For those investors for seeking for potential companies, it was a great time for you. Thank you. A channel to connect investors and companies. I wish those pharmaceutical biohealthcare companies make another leap forward. Now it is time to say goodbye. Thank you for your attention.